Greetings, friends. Welcome. Nice to see you. So we'll just take a few moments arriving as people join us. So as we do that, just encourage you to gather yourself here, now, embodied presence. Just feeling the ground beneath you. Okay, well, welcome to Sacred Mountain Sangha Sunday gathering, Sunday sit, reflecting on Dharma. And for those that can stay after our first hour for another 20 minutes or so, opportunity to engage any reflections, any questions, etc. So we'll begin shortly with some chanting, some recitation, and meditation. And I'd like to offer some Dhamma reflections around the theme that you all are joining for, which is very timely for this moment. And particularly as we're aware here, those of us in the US of Maui and what's been happening there, devastation and heartbreak, which is reflected, of course, around the world in so many different places that are profoundly destabilized due to the changing dynamic that we're in, the impact of climate and environmental breakdown, and the quickening of that. So we'll be reflecting on that through the lens of the Dharma. But first of all, let's just take 5 slow, deepening breaths as we arrive into this space and more immediately arrive into your own being, your body, grounding and slowing down as we transition from whatever we've been engaged with, whatever our Sunday is about, into this more timeless space of the Dharma. So to help us do that, just encouraging you to receive the experience of your body in whatever way that feels accessible for you. I find it's very helpful just to contact initially where we're touching ground, where there's pressure, where we experience that sensation of contact with our seat or feet on the floor, so more neutral grounding sensation. And then as we do that, we'll probably start to notice where we're holding in the body, in the shoulders, like the constriction. So before we even take a deepening inhalation, taking a moment just to breathe out and letting that out breath, the jaw soften, the shoulders drop, the belly soften. And then in your own time, in your own space, in your own way, you can have your eyes closed or just gently open, soften with a soft gaze. And just let's just count 5 slower, deepening breaths. So moderating the breath. So you can extend the inhalation, suffusing the whole body, the energy patterning in the body, the cells, the whole structure of the body, the feeling tones of the body, suffusing with breath and awareness through the body. A longer, slower breath. And then the same on the exhalation. So just moderating the breath to slow, deepen for 5 breaths. And maybe on the inhalation, Just feeling the nourishment of the way that the breath, as it suffuses through the body, irrigates through our whole being. And then on an exhalation, feeling that sense of what's Patinissaga, it's the 16th step of the Anapana, the breath meditation, Patinissaga, the giving back, the releasing, letting be. This natural rhythm, encouraging the ancient flow of the Dharma, of all things, arising, nourishing, fulfilling, and releasing, letting be, letting things go that are not needed, that don't serve. And remembering that at any time in this space that we're in together, in your life, driving, going about the daily things, these 5 slowing, deepening breaths are really helping to regulate our energy system, to help transform the momentum, break the pattern, break the set of the doing into being. So I'm going to put a link in the chat, which is for the chanting booklet. If you haven't got access to that immediately, you can open that if you like, or you might just like to listen. We're going to be doing 3 chants together, mantra, which is on page 3. That mantra is the 3rd one, honoring the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Then on page 4, the recollection of the triple jewel in Pali. And then on page 12, the great compassion mantra. So I'm starting with the mantra. So you're welcome to join, you're welcome to listen. If you're joining in, just to be mindful of staying muted. Okay. So taking refuge, aligning with refuge, inwardly, internally, externally, through the lineage, externally, internally, resting in awareness, contemplating the Dharma, the nature of things, aligning with practice, with Sangha. Buddha. Sangha, 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 one day, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, one day. On page 4, the recollection of the Triple Jewel. Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vijja ranasambhano sakado lokavedu annuttaro parisadhamma Tisada devam manusana buddho bhagavati sawa kado bhagavata dhammo sandidiko akaliko ehipasiko panayiko Pajadam veditabo Nyuhiti sabadibano bhagavato sa Sangho uchupatibano bhagavato sawaka sangho Nyayapatibano bhagavato sa Wakasangho samije padebano bhagavato sawakasangho yatidan taripurisayukani yatapurisabugalas Kavato sawakasangho ahanayo pahanayo takineyo anjali karaniyo anuttara punya kedaloka sati. And a great compassion mantra, which you'll find on page 12. We sound this mantra. At the heart of the mantra is the hands and eyes of Kuan Yin Bodhisattva, manifesting perfect response in response to suffering, merciful response, compassionate response. So sounding this mantra, as we were taught, sounding it like river, like a stream flowing, the stream of compassion, allowing that stream through the sounding of it to resonate internally through your being with kindness, deep compassion, spaciousness, allowing all that you're with to be held in that compassion and allowing it to flow out and offering the same for all beings. So honoring Namo Kuan Shu Yin Phassa, Namo Kuan Shu Yin Phassa, Namo Dabbe Kuan Shu Yin Phassa, honoring the greatly compassionate one, and then just going straight now into the mantra. Namo la na no do la ye namo liye bulu jeri shamo la ye ti sa do ma ye mo sa do ba ye mo jalu ni ja ye nan la va ye so da no da si na mo se je le do I ma li ye bulu jeri shavo to be namo no la ginger zili mo bando sam ye sam da de she bang a she yan sam sa sampa mola mola moji moji lidaya jira jira jamandulu yeri moha fashe yere dola dola diri ni shurbola ye jela jela momo va mola dili yesi yesi jono jono la jen mola jele va java jen mola huru huru mola huru huru sile sola sola sili sili le buddhiye buddhiye buddhoye buddhoye viririye nola jinjeri shine namaye mono sopa ye sopa moha sidwa ye sopa sidwa ye sherman la ye sopa nola jinjes mola nola sopa sidwa sangha mecha ye sopa sopa moha sidwa ye sopa jajila sidwa ye sopa bodho moja sidwa ye hanola jinja banjela ye sopa namo la la na la ye namo liye bulu shiri shambola ye sopa namo la la na la ye namo liye bulu shiri shambola sopa nansi diandu mandola badoye So again, returning to receive kindly, spaciously, gently how you are now, body, what's felt, feeling tones, the space you're in, the sounds. Just gathering more inwardly and doing that patiently, gently, inviting your awareness, your attention with the question, how is it now? What's present for you now? Inviting this deep receptivity. To just feel how you are now. How is the body? Noticing any places of tightness, holding, and as we were doing on arriving into the session, just taking breath and awareness to that sensation. Maybe extending breath, lengthening breath there, and on the exhalation, softening and releasing around the holding through the face, down through the shoulders, the torso, arms. Softening the belly, letting rest in the pelvic area, down through the legs, soles of the feet, palms of the hand. Taking all the time in the world to be with the breath, to be with what's felt, what you're with, what's present for you. And if there is some uncomfortable sensation, troubling feeling, anxiety, tightness, this is not in the way, this is the way. So being patient with what we usually just push ahead with, and so often don't take time to really feel and be with how we are. Noticing that to connect with the rhythm of the body needs to shift from the speed of the mind to the slower rhythm, the slower knowing, the somatic awareness. It's a different portal of knowing, of entering a deeper level of understanding, of being, of integration, of revelation, by taking that time, that patience to listen more deeply. Using each breath to guide us in that process, each sound to return us into inner presence, into the listening, each sensation to connect us with sensitivity, with openness, with receptivity. It's okay to be exactly how you are in this moment, even if there's some form of struggle, pain, or difficulty. This is the path, and it is a point of practice where we can bring compassionate, receptive awareness. Where we can use and guide the breath to soothe and calm the energy formations, patternings within the body, physical, emotional, mental body, somatic body. Where we can just, as in the second foundation, just feel the feeling in the feeling without having to create anything around it, do anything about it. Trusting awareness that in and of itself has the nature to bring balance, to heal, to illuminate, to integrate, to release the dukkha that arises but also passes, returning us, if we have that point of practice, returning us to our original, clear, bright, illuminated, undying, timeless heart nature. In the same way as we extend kindness, patience, compassion to ourselves, extending that to to this great earth and the sacred web of life, of nature, that includes all beings, all life forms, from the depths of the ocean to the heights of the great mountains, across all landscapes, all geographies, all time, all space, all cosmologies, subtle, unseen beings, to all elemental beings. All of this is within this great mind, this citta, this heart that we can touch. It's intimate to this heart that we touch, the heart of Kuan Yin, with compassion, to touch with compassion, to know, to touch lightly, to wish no harm, but to hold all in an embrace of love, drawing and invoking the great compassion at the heart of the cosmos, the heart of Kuan Yin, the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, the Awakened One, and ultimately your heart and all hearts, to invoke this stream, this river of compassion, to flow through all beings, healing, dissolving obstacles, liberating from the poisons of the mind, from the old wounds that keep us all stuck and diminished. At the same time, may all be free, may all be well, may all know peace, may all be touched by deep compassion. Thank you, everyone. So, yes, to the topic. First of all, I would just like to put in the chat for you the sutta that I'll be touching into very briefly, and it will go out and you can have access to that later. And I'm just going to screen share it so we can see it together. And so here it is, the MULA Sutta. It's very pithy. MULA means root. And it's like the Heart Sutra. These teachings are like portals. They're like condensed into, they're like a hologram. Once you go through one line, it opens up into the vastness of the Dharma. So, rooted in desire, friend are all things, born of attention are all things, arising on contact are all things, converging on feeling are all things. This is the beginning of the wheel, touching into the wheel of dependent origination, and rather than moving through that wheel unconsciously, landing up in dukkha, the flow starts to shift. There's the point of practice where, headed by samadhi, concentration are all things, governed or ruled by mindfulness are all things, surmountable by wisdom are all things. So that's our practice. That's what we actually do. We apply the medicine of the path. It's a path activity. And then the last 3 lines are the realization, the fruit. Yielding deliverance as essence are all things, merging in the deathless are all things, culminating in Nibbana are all things. So this is the release, the peace, the insight, the liberation. Okay, so that's just a brief touch, and we could spend a whole year on this sutta. I have about half an hour and to connect it to our larger story. And I think this is just to frame our practice, which has often been very internally orientated historically, our liberation, our path of liberation. And in our service has often been around palliative care, like helping with alleviate suffering where we see it. But as far as I'm reading the territory that we're in, there is a shift that needs to happen where there is a shift into understanding that our liberation is deeply tied to the liberation of all. And ultimately, the premise of me and all is part of what gets deconstructed in the Dharma, part of an illusionary assumption, if you like. It's an assumption we make that isn't really grounded in the nature of reality. In the nature of reality, there is no ultimate boundary. It's a seamless gestalt, if you like, everything resident in this one awareness, we could say it like that. But to actually live that has vast implications for this time that we're in. And also to translate that not only the care of the suffering, but actually to recognize that we are asked to actually enter that engagement, as the Buddha did, to change the system that is generating the suffering, not just mopping up the result of the suffering, going to the depth of what is the causal seeds that generate the suffering, as we do internally through the teaching of the Buddha, but to apply that on a planetary level, on a community level, on a global level, on a systems level, at this critical moment of our planet burning. And the implications of that are really hard for us to digest, because we've lived with myths that aren't really true and aligned with the reality of what we are, what our life actually depends on, which depends on a sustainable ecosystem. Depends on nature, every breath we take. And the divorce from that understanding in many ways, and what's led us to that divorce, is at the heart of our dilemma. And how can we reclaim this interbeing reality that is actually what we are? So I think this sutta and these teachings and this practice have a lot to say to that. I would just like to just touch onto a few points in our journey. This morning my time, whatever time zone you're in. This rooted in desire, all friends born of attention. Rooted in desire, friend are all things, born of attention are all things. This isn't a derogatory statement really about desire, and it's a translation here is a bit different than the Pali word is different actually than the usual word. Tanha is usually the word that we use with desire, like in the second noble truth, that is really means like that thirsting that we're constantly driven by for the next whatever. That is insatiable until we understand the root of where we're being driven from. Interestingly enough, in the Pali, instead of tanha, we have the word chanda, Chandamulaka, the root, chanda, this root in chanda. Chanda has a more positive sense, actually. It's more like inspiration. It's not, desire isn't all craven. It's the desire for to compassionately serve the Dharma is very wholesome. The Buddha had that intention. The desire to help, the passion to bring about creativity, to express our creative, all of these chanda. But there's still a sense often even in, well, to put it like this, wherever, take away the value judgment, wherever that chanda arises, it drives our attention, if you like, or the two are very interlinked. And where that attention, if you like, attention being like the outpost of the depth of the citta, the depth of awareness, which we haven't fully realized, we haven't fully embodied, we're not fully resting in. Often we're at that sort of, this is just a metaphor, but, to talk about the vastness of what the citta, the unbounded nature, there's a point of where that focuses in on attention. And that's our interface, if you like, of our internal and the external world, that point of attention. It's from that point of attention, whatever is arising from chanda moves the attention, and upon that point, our experience of world arises. It's not, we're not creating the world, but our experience of world arises. Whether we start thinking about a problem, and that's our world. Whether we're looking at Maui, that's the world. That we're actually co-creating the experience of what comes to us is the experience of the world, which is often filtered. That experience of the world is then filtered through our conditioned patterning, our assumptions that we make. Our assumptions that we make are very patterned by the social, economic, cultural, historic frames that we have been nurtured in through millennia. So sometimes just the fact of having pure attention and to see exactly what we're seeing is a very profound thing in and of itself, unfiltered. And then, of course, there are other links. Often what we're seeing is the projection of the mind. And then so there's a contact. Are we really in contact with what we're seeing, or are we in contact with our reaction? If we're in contact with our reaction, then, that connects with feeling. Then we start to create a world around the world that is. And so this is a sort of hologram of often of confusion for us. So just unpicking some of those links. But the frame that we often see through as the Buddha, going right back to his third sermon, the Fire Sutta, where he talks about the mind burning. The mind is burning. The mind on contact through the senses is often has this burn. It's because there is the arising in that contact of greed, hatred, and delusion. Maybe very subtle. There's a very strong words, but we certainly wouldn't argue that in terms of the relationship to the burning world and the source of that burning world that is actually human made, that is from the projections and the assumptions and the drivenness of the human mind, that is actually deeply divorced from fundamental realities, which we now have to face. Fundamental realities about what it means and what makes it possible to live here in the human realm, and for all beings, not only for us as humans, but for all beings. All beings are now implicated in that drivenness of the mind burning. So right at this point, this is a point on the map of where the real work is, if you like. It's not the real works are everywhere that we are, in every moment that we are, but the inner work that is often very divorced from our solution-based approach. We keep going to, how are we going to fix this? Let's move the chairs around on the Titanic, as they say. But where are we moving from? What is at the core? Where do we come from? So that, even as we engage, think about engaging these times to check where are we coming from, to change the sense of me as an individual, coming from what is needed to resolve things is often from my rational mind that is already thinking in that. At that point, the separative, the sense of me as this, this is also going into another point on our map, the heightened sense of me as an individual, or me in my group, as in individuals, coming from our assumption, our perspectives, as you know, to experience this, to figure out the solution. So that already is an assumption that has a sort of distortion in it. You know, it's not that it's bad, it's not that it's not powerful. Of course, when applied, the rational, focused mind, look what it's created. It's created a lot of this civilization. But, you know, it's created that divorced from nature. It's created it from divorced from our mutual belonging to each other. It's created it divorced from the fact that we interbe, that we don't actually, that we depend and need, you know, that we depend and need each other. And there's ways that we can be in that relationship that are nurturing, that are respectful, that are deeply, you know, deeply unlonely. This individualism has left us very isolated in a sort of spiritual vacuum, a soullessness, and lonely, which drives that wheel even more, as we lost that into being. So these are the two places, really. There are many places on the map of where we are that we can go to in terms of the work we need to do and how we need to apply that medicine of the work, not just individually, but begin to shift our lens into the collective, to reclaim our sense of deep listening of nature, and the actions that we do. Is this in harmony? Is this in, and when we think of nature, to think of it in a very holistic way, like, for example, the fires in Maui were exacerbated in great part because of the natural wetlands, the natural grasses through, you know, colonialism, through the planting of sugar, through the change of land use, through the ends that we want to meet, didn't really consider nature in the process, didn't really have a longer time frame. It's very like, let's just get what we want now. So this reclamation, is this something we can do? What are the impacts, not only for us as humans, but on the whole system? And that's a very deep reorientation that we have to make. And I believe that the Dharma, even the old word for the Dharma, is nature. You know, it is this sense of, it's not just planetary nature, but a cosmology of beings. We live in a Gaian cosmology, a deep. And nature is not dead. Nature is a spirit. Nature is alive. Nature has consciousness. We're hearing about that, how the trees talk to each other, how the mycelial world is moving, how and so on and so on. You know, and animals, you know, how they grieve, how they have feelings, just like us, how they have their own languages. So the myth of the divorce from nature, which came out of mostly Eurocentric Christo theology, patriarchal religion. It's a long story. It's a long story, and it's very embedded in our way of viewing. So to shift that view, it's a conscious point of practice. And the myth of individualism, you know, as Margaret Thatcher, 1981, 1980s, you know, said, there is no such thing as a society. We are the fruits of that now. There is no such thing as, you know, care to the consequences of a total interbeing world. As indigenous ways of understanding a solution isn't just a techno solution, but it really is about a deepening of understanding that there needs to be some kind of justice within that solution, some reckoning within that solution, some understanding of how those in the Northern Hemisphere in particular have benefited, how we have benefited from collapsing many societies and extracting drastically from the global South, you know, in brief. You know, so that's another dimension of We're not individuals, we're not just, conquerors. That this climate catastrophe and biodiversity apocalypse, to quote, is not the indigenous quote, so I can't really source it right now. It's not a technical problem, but a relational problem. It's not a techno fix. We have to go deeply back into the roots to really, that are living in us. They're not back in time, they're living, we're living them, we are a product of them, to reframe and reorientate, which is what the Dharma does. So in the MULA Sutta, we come to, the place of practice, headed by concentration of all things. This is the word here, samadhi. It implies, concentration is a very bad translation of samadhi. Samadhi, sam means together, S-A-M. D means to hold. And the long A, samadhi, that means a movement. It's like a movement of, it's like hold the citta, it's the heart, it's like all unified, to unify. We work unifying in samadhi practice, mind, heart, body, if you like. They're not divided, not in the ways that we thought. To unify the cosmology of our belonging, is the medicine, the salve for this uber individualism, the loneliness of it, the fear of it, the lack of belonging of it, the disassociation of it, the amnesia of it. To reclaim this cosmology of being that we are, to rejoin this extraordinary web of life as living, conscious, speaking, headed by this, governed by mindful contemplation, surmountable by wisdom. This mindful, it's not just a technique. It's a deep yoniso manasikara, which accompanies mindfulness, usually in the suttas, implies yoni means womb, in matrix. Yoniso manasikara means put the mind, the mana, this dualistic subject-object frenetic mind that we're addicted to, put that back in the yoni, in the original primordial matrix of being, in awareness, the heart of awareness. Put that in awareness, to fathom, to contemplate at depth, not just like a little quick, that can help. I'm not undermining at all, but I'm just deepening our understanding of the practice of what we need to do. Put it all in awareness. Stop trying to think it out in our dualistic mind and then going into freeze, fear, flight, those dynamics, and allowing, where does the wisdom come from? Not from this individualistic, egocentric, let's fix it mindset, not the deep wisdom that's rooted in the cosmology of it all. The word wisdom, panya, Pannuttara sabbe dhamma, Pannuttara, prajna in Sanskrit, pra means before, jna is connected to the word gnosis or knowing. Before you know anything as an object to you, invited in deep subjectivity, nothing is outside of this one awareness when we're in that gathered samadhi cosmology of it all. It's all very intimate. That's the view of Guan Yin. It's all very intimate. It's known. Yeah, we can know and think about, oh God, I hate this, I hate that, and that's true. But to know from the depth, to know when you're rooted into the deep intelligence of it all, is a very different kind of knowing. It's not the knowing of the individual in its limited view. It's knowing as part of as being a conduit for the Dharma, what Ajahn Chah called being Dharma. So our practice is to know in this way. And then everything we do from that will be completely aligned. We won't even really have to think about it much. It will come to us. It will be guided. We will hear it. We'll hear that impulse. We'll be connected with the being Dharma. That's why Ajahn Chah never planned for anything. You'd say, Ajahn Chah, you're going to go and give that talk in London, and it's actually happened. I don't know. It's like loads of people turning up. All the monks getting really, you get let's see, and okay, let's do it. My nair was his favorite expression. It's uncertain. To stay at that edge, to stay at the unknowing. to trust the depth, to listen is a place of deep knowing. So the practice of that, then yielding the movement, the last stanzas, yielding deliverance, which is so profound. Vimutti sara sabbe dhamma, dissolving separative consciousness. There's a fruit of this vimutti, yielding deliverance as essence are all things. Just translate yielding vimutti. Vimutti is freedom. Sara is essence. Kiti saro, kiti kirtan, devotion or honor. Saro, essence of. Sara, the essence, sabbe dhamma, all dhammas. Dhammas, and this is like not the dharma, the timeless, ever-present, inviting dharma. The dhammas with a small d is like thingness, what's constructed. There is no real thing, but what's constructed, what we put together, and that's a thing. I mean, really, in the cosmology of deep reality, there is no separative thing. That's what the Heart Sutra is about. But so everything has at its essence, every circumstance, even the spurning world, at the essence, there is already freedom. There is already the solution. There is already the wisdom. There is already the deep response from deep Dharma intelligence. We just have to hear it. So this is the realization. This is the deepening into a trust beyond the thoughts, beneath the cognitive, taking us into the deathless, culminating in Nibbana. This is about the taste of peace. Path doesn't really stop there, actually. It kind of does and doesn't. It does because there's no, that's the returning home, if you like, the great return, to know the timeless, to dwell, to know, in a way, to take up our true seat, to take up our true throne of the heart, not all the shapes that we get shaped by, the senses of selves. So the peace conditions, as the Buddha under the Bodhi tree could have said, oh, this is very nice, I'm just going to hang out here forever. And then Brahma Sahampati, the great God from the Tara heaven or some heaven, said, oh no, all the devas are going, oh no, he's not going to teach anything, he's not going to say anything, he's just going to sit there in bliss, So they sent down Brahma Sahampati, who represents Brahma, the Brahma realm, represents this taking the formless, deep, liberative consciousness. Brahma is the creator, into form, and asked the Buddha, for those with little dust, please go forth out of compassion. So that's really then the culmination of the path. We can't just sit on our laurels and sit on retreat forever. Not that that's not difficult, by the way. But, we are called to serve. What do we serve? Who do we serve? As the Buddha said in his own awakening, one who does not serve lives unhappily, something greater than themselves. What can I serve? Oh, I'll serve the Dhamma. We're serving the Dhamma. The Dhamma is nature. The Dhamma is everything, actually. We serve. So this moment is calling us to serve, but coming from a very different place, a reorientation, such a deep thing that we're engaged in. It's such a deep invitation. This moment is a deep terror, a deep reckoning. And it's not just over there in the Horn of Africa, which, by the way, where millions of people are suffering from drought and starvation, which is historically, it's over there, it's over there. You think of Maui, it's sort of like the place where the getaway place, the place in our mind has a sort of iconic burning in the way it's burning. It's like the moment that the Buddha leaves the palace and he sees impermanence, he sees death, he sees sickness, and it shocks him to the core. It's a moment like that. It's meant to be to wake us up. This isn't over there. We had that here where I am in Sonoma County. We had that a few years ago, in the town of Paradise. It's deeply shocking. And then we try and carry on as normal. So I think the ask, and I realize we have to just reorientate to this time. I realize I'm out of time. That's what I was going to say. Sorry, I have this habit of starting a sentence. In my mind, it's finished, and I'm moving. We have to move beyond business as usual somehow. And we need to do it personally, collectively. We need to do it collectively. So at Sacred Mountain Sangha, we were going to teach a retreat, on all of this. And my feeling was we need to have ourselves, not just as a teaching team, not just as an organization, but as a Sangha. We need to have a conversation. What does it mean now? What does all this mean now for us practicing, teaching, being on retreat, whatever we're doing in the Dharma? Because it means something. It means we have to shift. We have to respond. It means something radical, that we need to reorientate. We need to move beyond business as usual. And, we're still in the business as usual. So it's not say, well, what does it mean, Thanissara? What should we do? Or someone. I don't know. I mean, I've got ideas. You all got ideas. But if we have collaborative conversation, we will hear what it means. If we have, stretch ourselves into this invitation at this time of breakdown, the breakdown of central myths, as was said by Edwin Edinger, Union, was his name, is a dangerous moment for civilization. We're at that moment, these central myths. You can see Biden, trying to balance, okay, we're going to get old. Oh, okay, we're going to, climate emergency. Okay, let's do more. You see it's madness. We're in this mad mode. We're in this completely conflictual space. And somehow we have to be here to feel it, to feel the depth of the incongruency that we're in. It's unsustainable because it will force a shift. If we just keep trying to normalize and patch it over, we have to, it's like dukkha, it's like Ajahn Chah. Whole monastic thing was in Ajahn Chah's way was to create a situation which the monastery did in itself, where you can't go up, you can't go down, you can't go sideways, you can't flee, fly, freeze, you can't, any of the moves that you made, you can't do. What are you going to do? And that's when we find the Dharma. That's where we have to find a different move. So this is our task. It's extraordinary. So I want to leave you with a quote because it's terrifying and extraordinary. I don't want to lose whatever the outcome is, and we're going to have to be, we're going to have to build resilience. We're going to have to build in a different way because there's a lot in play. We've already passed tipping points. That's the science, that's the data. So there's going to be more Mauis, there's going to be more heartbreaks, more displaced peoples, maybe us, we think it's not us. We've had 3 evacuation events where we're living. They're very small compared to getting on a dinghy and trying to get across the Mediterranean from Africa or wherever. But that could be us. Don't think it's not going to be us. We're in this together. So we better start thinking that way. But it can also hone us in a way where we come to what is really important. What is really important? This heart, love, compassion, service, generosity, sharing, continuing to use this moment for deepening our awakening, to distill and transform suffering into nectar. So I want to leave you with this beautiful teaching from Nagarjuna's teacher, Sarahara, who said, just as the ocean's salty water taken into clouds turns sweet, the sweet rain, the stable mind works to benefit others, turning poison into healing nectar. Just as the ocean's salty water taken into clouds turns sweet, the stable mind works to benefit others, turning poison into healing nectar. I believe this is our task. the stable mind, where everything is wobbling. The mind is not going to necessarily be stable, but the heart. Maybe that, I'm not sure what the original text, but the stable heart, the true heart is already stable, is already samadhi. And just returning to that, practicing that, renouncing and aligning into that, focusing there, breathing there. And then we have this opportunity to distill nectar from the challenge as healing, as nourishing, as the food that helps us listen into that depth so that we know how to turn up personally, collectively, and hopefully globally. Okay, but let's just finish with sharing of blessings, saying a prayer. You're bringing to heart, to mind, all of those that are impacted by these swift changes happening around the earth, loss of life, loss of habitat, not just humans, but the myriad of, from the smallest insects, the earth beings in the soil, to the domestic and wild animals, fish, just so many creatures that we don't even think to count in. This great destabilization that's happening. Just holding this in our heart and invoking the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Kuan Yin to send love, compassion, sharing of all blessings. Just chanting Kuan Yin's heart mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, allowing that to go out, carrying our prayer. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Thank you so much, everyone. So lovely to see you. You're very, very welcome. If you want to unmute and just kind of shout out a goodbye to everyone. And lots of love to you all. Stay well, go well, and look forward.
Bye.
Hopefully.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Thanissara.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thank you, Thanissara.
Yeah, thank you all. See you next week, hopefully.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Bye.
you.